Well, I tried to do this video in a different spot than I normally film like talking head videos, but there's too much sun happening today, so you get the same old background and the same old wonderful personality to sit here and talk to you guys about Imbolc today. I want to share with you how, in potentially a very mundane way, I celebrate Imbolc and what Imbolc has come to mean for me in my everyday life. Imbolc is the midwinter point, so it marks halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It's the midwinter point. It is Imbolc, also known as Brigid'sday. Now, Brigid originated as a goddess, and there was some Christianization of her becoming a saint, so depending on where you're from, your upbringing, any religious connections you might have, Imbolc might be known to you more commonly as Brigid'sday. I am not someone who holds in high regard the Christianization process, so I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm going to talk about Imbolc and how I have incorporated that in my life and what it has come to mean for me in my personal experience. On that note, if you are looking for a video that has lists and histories and practices and altars and rituals about how to work with Imbolc in a very step-by-step way, I would highly recommend HearthWitch. I will leave a link in the description here to the video where she talks about all of the correspondences in the history and everything that Imbolc can be for you in your practice if that's what you're looking for. I wanted to create this video to share with you how I incorporate a pagan Sabbath, a celebration, in more of a mundane way, and how I have come to shift and change the way I live my everyday life to align with the seasons and the cycles of our Mother Gaia and kind of enable me to live more in tune with her. So let's get into it. On my homesteading journey, I have really found that being in tune with the seasons is helpful, obviously, because gardening is so involved in the land. You need to know your last frost date, your first frost date. You need to have your garden planned. You need to have equipment and supplies and everything organized in order to have an optimal growth season ahead of you. And that's what our ancestors did, whether we were still nomadic and having to read the seasons and be so in tune with nature that we can predict and plan our lives around and with her, or when we were in our settlers stage where we had homesteads and gardens and crops and livestock. All of that plays into human development and where we come from and the history behind the sabbaths, because these sabbaths and celebrations were around everyday real events. It is not springtime yet. In fact, in this intro and throughout this video, I will show you just how wintry it still is here. But Imbolc represents that moment when the fire ignites back in Mama Gaia's stomach and starts to thaw our planet from the inside out, and the light and the warmth is slowly brought back to our earth, where we start to think about creating and growing and get those juices flowing around what this coming season can have in store for us. So, to me, working and incorporating the pagan wheel of the year in any capacity, whether that's winter solstice or Lughnasadh, any of it, really represents and enables me to honor and preserve and observe nature and then better align myself with what's actually going on outside, as opposed to a Monday to Friday, January, February, March kind of calendar structure, which is very, very removed from reality, earth, what's occurring outside. When it comes to gardening, it doesn't matter to me that my last frost date is the end of March if there's still snow on the ground, hypothetically. Do you see what I'm saying? Living in accordance with the seasons and following the pagan wheel of the year have really gone hand in hand for me, especially on my gardening and my homesteading journey, because our ancestors in humanity, we're part of nature, and it's only in the last hundreds of years that we've started to view ourselves as separate, and I think it's the cause of a lot of our issues. That's what this video is going to be for me. I'm going to share with you how I incorporate celebrations or holy days or one-time off things into my everyday life, and how I have gotten so much benefit off of trying to reorientate the way I think about calendars and planning, and kind of toss that out the window and just get really back to observing what's going on outside, being out in nature and being present enough to be able to be in tune and ahead of the curve, as it will. What I start to do around Imbolc is I actually start to sink my teeth into planning, like very realistically planning what my garden season ahead of me is going to look like. Up until now, it's very like tempting to start writing down where I'm going to put my potatoes and getting into what types of tomato varieties. And while the urge comes and goes throughout the winter, especially when I need to stock up on seeds before the season starts or before the companies I buy from go out of stock, you can really want to get ahead of yourself by like several months and start like planning those things out. But if you do that, you're not allowing that rest period that is winter. So I think for both physical and mental and emotional and spiritual health, it's imperative to rest when the season calls for rest, which is why I find Imbolc to be such an invigorating time of year, because it signals to me that it's just starting to wake up outside. And I don't mean things growing. We've still got feet of snow. We're still freezing every day, every night. We are still in the mid-winter. It's cold. But what is happening is the idea and the initiatory catalyst has happened. You can feel it in your belly when you go on a walk and the sun's a little hotter than normal. The days are getting longer, the light is returning, which is what Imbolc is all about. That fire being ignited, the warmth returning to the planet. That also means the creative juices for me in my life start to flow again. So it's a wonderful time to look at the seeds that I have, do a bit of an inventory, and start getting those wheels turning for the up and coming year. If you are a homesteader, a farmer, a gardener who has livestock, then you know the very pivotal, intense, and busy time that is just starting to ramp up around February 1st or Imbolc would be lambing, calving, anything that involves dairy production, which obviously we know that a cow must have said calf in order to produce said milk. Therefore, this kind of early spring, we're starting to lamb, we're starting to have calves, because when the spring time comes, you want to have your calf weaned in time in order to then start harvesting milk for yourself. So dairy is kind of a traditional food that is often used in the latter halves of the winter and early spring before vegetables and gardens and grass are growing. We have dairy production, we have meat, and we have preserves. That kind of transfers me from talking about the homestead and pre-planning and dreaming into the food that is associated with the Sabbaths. This is another thing that is so intrinsic in human nature, is our food. This is why when you're looking at the pagan wheel of the year, there is so much highlight and emphasis on what are you going to eat, what are you going to drink, because earth-based cultures, when we were in tune with the land, that was our primary concern, is where is our food coming from today? How can we plan to have more or good or sufficient amounts of food tomorrow? This is what life is about, well, at least for me, and I think originally most people. Food, man. It's important. You need it. On the food topic, and on a very practical note, Imbolc often means inventory time when it comes to your pantry. I say that because you've been eating through your preserves and your pantry and your frozen goods and your canned goods for the last month or so, and historically speaking, we would be running really low right about now when it comes to our winter reserve. So if you're wanting to have a specific meal or feast or have offerings or share food, which in my opinion is one of the best ways to incorporate Sabbaths or holidays, is meals. We have to eat anyway, so if you add that level and layer of intentionality to it, it makes it that much more nutritious, not only for your body, but for your soul, for your heart, and for your family, to know that there's meaning behind what you're doing. So foods that are associated with Imbolc are seasonally appropriate foods. So that would be your root vegetables, any preserves that you have from the previous grow season. And like I said, do inventory when you're down there pulling stuff out of your freezer. What do you have to eat through, or else it's going to go to waste? We have squash downstairs that we've got to get through. We have potatoes that we have to get through because they're starting to chit already. It's those very practical things that, because we're so disconnected from our food sources and growing our own, we often don't see the connection between those kinds of spiritual or pagan practices and real practical historical things that needed to occur around this time of year, which is what I love about these earth-based practices, is that it's just real life, man. Whether you're feeding your friends, feeding yourself, feeding your family, or offering this food back to the earth, back to spirits, deities, gods, goddesses, whatever you work with, whatever you jive with, make your offerings seasonally appropriate. Another aspect to this, which is maybe overlooked, is compost. So it's a very obvious and nutrient-dense way to offer anything back to the earth would be via your compost. You are literally making soil, feeding the microbiome of your earth. It is going back into that cycle. It is feeding you from your garden the following season. So turn something as mundane as composting all of your old vegetable scraps into a intentional, spiritual, connected practice in honor of the planet. Honoring the planet, getting back in cycles and in tune with nature, that all can really come together in just simply spending time outside. If you want to learn how to embody and work with and celebrate the pagan wheel of the year, sabbaths, Imbolc, get outside. This is what earth-based spirituality and practices is based off of. Your connection with the earth. So go on a hike and put your I'm a little kid and I'm in awe glasses on, because that is the only way to really appreciate the level of beauty, grace, kindness, and capacity to hold us that the earth gives to us. Go on a hike outside and pray. Give offerings, sing a flippin' song, just express yourself and your gratitude and your love for being part of this whole dang mess that is life, because she does it all for us. Look at the trees, observe the snow, and just give thanks. Be out in nature, be with her, see her, acknowledge her, exist out there, and that's going to teach you more about Imbolc and more about connection and cyclical living and observation and the power that is Mother Earth than any YouTube video is ever going to give you. Feel that connection for yourself. Get outside and be in nature. Because Imbolc is one of the original fire festivals, it's really important and exciting for me to point out the fact that you can honor the sun. Where I live, and I'll show you in this footage that I have for you, it gets pretty monochromatic in the winter. We are out in the forest, there's no buildings, there's no street lights, there's no colorful sidewalk paintings. It is the snow, that is white, and it is the brown tree branches and stumps and the very muted forest green, because the trees are resting, they're not producing that chlorophyll, they're not that vibrant new growth green. It's monochromatic out there. It's black and white. So the most beautiful thing I find myself drawn to in the winter months is lighting. And it is probably the biggest focus and intention of my photography and my videography journey would be to get good enough. This is all I want. Get good enough with my camera and my lenses to actually be able to capture and show you and share with you how incredibly beautiful, complex, and transformational lighting can be in a monochromatic world. Give thanks to the sun. The days are getting longer. This is the life-giving energy that we require to grow and live on this planet. The relationship between the sun and the earth, between the sun and you, is an incredible thing to contemplate during Imbolc. If you live somewhere like where I live, that the sun is rare, and today it's a gorgeous day, but we don't usually have a lot of sun here in the North Okanagan. It's pretty gray through the winter. Light some candles, do a prayer, and spend time sitting and contemplating light itself. Go out and take photos of light. Draw or paint or get some artistic expression going, and have your theme and your focus be the light as a spiritual concept or as a very fundamental requirement for sustenance and life on this planet. Of course, on the topic of creating or artistic expression, you can do altar creation or brigid crosses or crafts that bring in nature into your home and kind of embody the energies that you're trying to work with, whether that's color association, that whole kit and caboodle. I haven't been doing a lot of that recently, to be very honest, because I'm too busy, because I have seeds that I've got to do inventory for, because I have to clear out my pantry, because the way I'm living my life, I'm trying to live it as in honor of nature as I can, that it's not required of me to do separate altars or separate offerings. I want my life to be of service to the earth and to be of benefit. So I'm trying to shift my perspective of having a distinct spiritual practice, like an altar structure or divination practices that are rigid and kind of where the buck stops for me, into a more cohesive way of living my life with intention and imbued with as much joy and magic as I can into mundane activities. I think that is the pivotal next step for me, at least on my journey and with my practice, is to take these color correspondences and these very linear and specific ways to practice paganism or to practice witchcraft, that symbolic and embodied kind of structure, which is useful and good and is still incorporated in a part of my life. I have altars and knickknacks and things imbued with intention all over my house, all over my room, all over my life. But to make my life the altar, to, what's the saying? Every step becomes a meditation when you're imbuing your everyday life with that much intention. To me, that's what living should be about. That's this kind of shift I'm trying to make, and that's actually just why I wanted to make this video, to hopefully encourage you or bring you along with that subtle shift of doing magic and living magically. You can call it intentional or magical or spiritual. I don't really care what word you use, and to be honest, it doesn't really matter as long as you are, I think, doing what lights your heart up. And to me, that means getting my little inner child going and imagining all the different fun ways I could plant flowers and the colors, and the inner child that I have, she likes to play with candles and get witchy and get altars going and mash herbs up and just, I don't know, live a little messy. So this is my encouragement to you, to take your practice from something maybe that's more ritualistic in nature and move it into your whole life, everywhere. Do everything with as much intentional joy and magic and good juju as you possibly can, and I think that this world would get a lot better. The last point I kind of want to make on the sabbaths, or the wheel of the year, and the cyclical nature of it all, would be that these are really great checkpoints. This is literally like halfway between the winter solstice, the spring equinox. It's a perfect time to do a bit of an inventory on your emotional self, what you have achieved, haven't achieved. It's good to shift and pivot. It's a reminder to me that I've got other things coming down the pipeline that I should be preparing for. So instead of maybe sitting in that entropy feeling of winter where I can get a little down and a little sad and a little too relaxed or too depressed or settled, I can now start to dream. I have something to look forward to. It's a small but very noticeable energetic shift from resting and being okay in the dark to starting to look for and create the light. That inner fire that for me I feel primarily in my bottom three chakras: root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus chakra. In these areas, this is where that fire is lit for me. I know that is not a very traditional Imbolc video where I give you all of the different ways to celebrate, the color correspondences, the types of candles, the different crafts, the things you can put on your altar, the saints or deity associations. While that is all powerful and good, to me, there came a tipping point where I needed to live this in a different way, and I needed to embody this in a different way. And that meant incorporating it into mundane activities like cleaning out my pantry. I hope this video has been freeing for you. I hope that you have maybe gotten a few ideas about how you can live in tune with the turning and spinning of the wheel of the year, and how this can add and imbue some more intentionality into your life. As always, my friends, may the force be with you, and I will see you all back here very shortly for another video. Bye-bye for now.